Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 100th episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, Gianna Valeski.
Hey, Jim, it is really good to be with you today. Can't believe this is 100. That's a big number.
We made it. You worked hard for 2 years to become an overnight success. Here we are. And I think our listeners, if you're listening and not watching, you can hear that there's some other voices on the podcast today. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? And because we brought friends along to talk a little bit more about the last 100 episodes, and kind of as if everybody in the audience, we found the best representatives of everybody in the audience to talk about the last 100 episodes and what Converge has done for you in your life and your ministry. And so why don't you guys take turns, introduce yourselves to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Cool. I'll start. My name is Ben Vey, and I am the lead pastor at the Gateway Church in Ferrysburg, Michigan, which is the Grand Haven Spring Lake area. And I have been serving here almost 15 years. Next month, it'll be 15 years.
Boom. You look so young. So young.
Thank you.
Which one of the mics wants to go next?
I'm Mike Montgomery. I pastor here in Shelby Township, Michigan, pastor Shelby Bible Church. And we've been here 4 years. Previous to that, we pastored in Ohio for 13 years. And so we've been here 4 years, getting used to the area. And thankful for the opportunity to be here with you guys today.
That leaves our last guest.
My name is Mike Hauser. I'm the lead pastor at Holland First Assembly of God in Holland, Michigan. I've been there. In fact, this December, I will be here 15 years. It does fly.
Wow.
I have something in common. We're kind of came on at the same time at both of our churches. And like they've also echoed, it is an honor to be a part of your big day, 100 podcast. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think this is probably a good time to put in our disclaimer, John, that views expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of Converge or its management. For those of you who are watching by video, you may notice there's some sort of propaganda with a big O behind Pastor Hauser here. So we're going to, it just goes to prove that Converge still has work. There's still a mission field of people that need to be reached.
Amen.
So we'll turn it over to our guru here, our mentor, Gianna Valeski. Take it away.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for being a part of this special day, this special session. Appreciate each one of you, the relationships that we have, the trust that we built with each other. And we chose you guys because you guys are probably some of our most consistent listeners to the podcast. And so we wanted to ask you, Jim and I were interested to hear from each one of you, what was one of your favorite podcasts? And then maybe why it was your favorite podcast. So in no particular order, guys, take it away.
I look at back at the list of podcasts the other day just to kind of refresh my mind of the ones I'd listened to. And you've actually done a few podcasts on alignment over the time that you've been doing it. But early on, 6 and 7, and those ones on alignment just are a refresher in my mind of getting clear on why we're doing what we're doing, and then streamlining everything in line with that. And it's been an ongoing process in our church, but it's actually just listening to it again the other day to refresh my mind was just an encouragement again of just keeping the main things, the plain things. And it was very helpful.
I actually have 3. I hope that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, the ones that come to mind, and yesterday I was just kind of putting them in order. But I agree with what Mike said there, the simple yet amazing power of alignment. With that, you gave what is known as the 3 big ideas. And you talked on those. And then I think the following week you came back in with the same general thing, but then you gave 5 components. Right. And our staff really, really like that. And then probably because it's the most recent, your podcast this past week was phenomenal. Leadership and words. We all know that words are important, but you guys both had a way of talking about how our words do matter. Not only, from the letter of James saying the power of life and death is in the tongue and so forth, but when we're going through hard times to really be careful and watch our words. And you gave, I think, 4 or 5 action points of how we can be better with our words. And I know we went around the staff after our podcast, and we probably had our greatest dialogue out of all the podcasts we've done. Wow. We've listened to with you guys, just because it's so relative to what we're going through, because everybody now with COVID-19, everything, we all have an opinion. So our words are many, and they helped me. So that's probably the one that the alignment ones were awesome, but your recent one just knocked it out of the park.
Interesting. Mike, this past week I met with John Opalewski and a staff member, and then after I met, I listened to the Words one as well. And John, I was thinking I could have avoided a trip to Lansing just by listening to that podcast. Am I right?
I think so. Actually,
Yeah.
think so. That's true.
And so that was a good one for me. I didn't look back at any of the podcasts. I was just, thinking off the top of my head in preparation for this, that there have been a few about staff relations and what does a staff member need from the lead, and then what does the lead need from the staff. I think those were probably some of my favorite.
Yeah. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot lately is how hard it is to build a staff and then to maintain a healthy staff. That it really, truly is one of the biggest challenges of being a lead pastor. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. But what do you guys think about that? I've just been hearing a ton of that. Would you say aye to that or nay to that?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as the challenges go, I mean, this is a great opportunity to ask, serving leaders right now, like what's the biggest challenge that you are facing right now as a pastor?
I'll take that real quick. It's happened to us is we're in Holland and West Michigan. And so we've been doing 2 services now for about 6 years, just because the need was there for 2 services, our parking lot, and the 80% rule and so forth. COVID has changed a lot of that for us. We have about 65% of our people back. We still probably have about 35% that aren't back. But the thing was recently we met as a staff when we talked in our staff meeting, and the common theme that kept coming up from all the pastors was my area is lacking volunteers. And the volunteer base took a huge hit. And so some of the volunteers that committed to stay through, especially in our children's ministry area, which is probably our biggest area in the church. And we had people working every week, every Sunday, both Sundays, or both morning services for like 16 months. And our children's pastor pretty much had about 50% of her volunteers step down. Still watching online, but did not feel, like they wanted to serve. So as a result of that, here's what I did. I talked with my staff, I talked with my board, and I said, attendance wise, we could still do 2 services, but I'm going to burn the volunteers we have now. I'm going to burn them out, and we're going to have no one. And so we decided as a staff to come back and do 1 service for a year and really try to rebuild our volunteer base and that are tired, get them healthy, try to raise up some more. We're going to evaluate after 6 months to see how we're doing. But it'll probably be a year that we're going to stay with 1 service. And then we hope to get back to 2. But it really wasn't the attendance part. It was just a lack of volunteers.
Right. Would the other 2 say that's the most significant thing? Or is there something else that's more significant than that you're facing right now?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a strain on volunteers. Ours comes from a little different perspective. We were doing 1 service prior to COVID, and it seems as almost COVID hit the accelerator for us in the speed of ministry. And what we had to do, we had to switch. We went to 2 services to allow distancing and space. Right. And then we've maintained those. And so then I think making those changes has kind of surfaced the things in our church that says, what are the things that are just churchianity and they're not really fundamental to what we do, and that have to be set aside so that we can keep doing the main things and keeping the heart and the mission of the church online while we ride this accelerated pace. I kind of feel like, having been here for 12 months when COVID hit as the lead pastor, and then we hit the gas or hit the brakes rather, and there was nothing happening. And, I was preaching to an empty auditorium for 12 weeks. Somebody asked me if that was hard. I'm like, no, the first 5 years of ministry were practice for that. So, but then then we came back from that, and it's just been, it's almost like the church advanced 5 years in time. And it's an odd thing. So just keeping that without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, clarifying what we have to keep. And that's been the wrestling match.
Right. What about you, Ben? What's the biggest challenge that your area is facing as churches?
Yeah, so volunteerism is definitely an issue. I think what comes to my mind is overall confidence for me as a leader. And I've been second guessing myself more than ever, unfortunately. And I know it's not right. I know that we have, a great, Heavenly Father that loves us and supports us and, helps us through. But it's been a disruptive season. I lost 3 staff members in 2020.
Wow.
I lost some key board people, and that we're still, somewhat licking our wounds because of that. And, really coming into the fall and just really trusting that God has a plan, and then, putting that plan into practice. I think the confidence is probably where I have the most challenge.
Yeah.
Can I say amen to that? Because I feel like it's just been a year, 2 years of hard decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And you find yourself second guessing. So
Now, when you say hard decisions, Mike, what makes the decisions harder than a normal decision? I think I know the answer to this, but when you say hard decisions, why are they hard?
Nobody's going to be happy with the decision you make, period.
That's it.
And it's more divided than ever. So
yes. Yeah.
You're always going to have 5 or 10% of people that don't like it. And you lead through that. But when your church seems almost 50-50 on it, it makes it hard. So.
Can I say one quick thing? I know there's other things that we'll talk about. Just real quick, one of the things where you're having to kind of adjust on the fly, it seems like that's magnified right now. And one thing we decided that we did live stream. We had never done live stream before. We always put our sermons out on the different social media platforms by Sunday evening. But when we literally overnight to go live stream, that has grown, and that's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Got to a point where people were using the live stream, and I hate to say this, but they were using it as an excuse. And there were some that they might not even be watching it on Sunday. They might watch it here or there, the rest of the week, whatever. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to continue, even though we had a lot of people that didn't even attend Holland First watching our live stream. We thought, we're going to cancel that, and we're going to get people to come back. Well, after about 2 weeks of that, I started realizing I had made the wrong decision because there are some people that are like, hey, I really want to watch, but you've taken that. And so once again, we adjusted on the fly, and we said, we're going the live streams because I do know that it's a time where you can't be set in stone right now. Everything's fluid. Yeah. And starting this Sunday, we're back to live stream as well as in person. So,
yeah. And, Mike, I just appreciate your willingness to adapt quickly. And, sometimes I think as leaders, we make a decision and if it's not going the way we want it to go, if we're insecure, we think, well, that's egg on my face, or I look bad because I made a decision and it didn't work out. And I just appreciate that your willingness to say, hey, that's not working. We're pivoting quickly. And I think if anything, COVID taught us.
You had a podcast on that too, The Art of Pivoting.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we did a podcast on the art of pivoting, right? Like being able to adjust on the fly, I think has really been one of the characteristics of churches that have actually survived this whole last 18 months, that you've been able to adapt quickly and, hey, this isn't working. We're going to make a change. This is working. We're going to put gas on that. Absolutely. And Mike, you brought up the whole digital experience. And we did a podcast. I think we did a podcast, a couple months ago on how digital is helping and hurting the local church. And digital has some things that it's really doing well for us, but I do think that there are some things that it's not helping us with. And one of the things it's not helping us with is isolation. And it's impossible to duplicate the gathering experience that public gathering experience. It's impossible to duplicate that digitally.
Yeah.
There's just, but at the same time, it allows people who can't get there. It allows people. When I was on vacation, I was listening to the live stream. My wife and I were listening to the live stream. And so we were in the middle of a teaching series. And so it allowed for continuity. So it really is been a fascinating 18 months for us. And I think we could spend the entire rest of our podcast talking about challenges. The ones that Jim and I hear the most are we need to rebuild our serve teams, or I'm having problems keeping staff, or the staff that I do have, we're struggling to get them to up their game. Those are some of the ones that we are hearing over and over and over again. And so thank you for being transparent with that, guys. We really, really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you this question. This probably is a selfish one, but I think you know me well enough that you'll allow me a little bit of selfishness. I'm curious how Leading from Alignment, the podcast, is helping the church you lead. Now, you did mention a little bit of that earlier, but I'm wondering, how is it helping your church as a whole?
I just listen to your podcast and then plagiarize them. And it's a big help to our church. Yeah.
It's called research.
Yeah.
We'll take that offline, I guess.
No, passing them on to friends. John, you've been a help, not just to me personally, but then sending friends to you that were in a crisis in ministry, and then being able to step up and hear some wisdom from you and help them through a season. And then you've been to our church and walked our volunteer team through some training. We did a crazy thing of launching growth groups in the middle of COVID, and you helped us do that. So, those are some of the things that I think has been just a major help. And of course, your personal friendship has been greatly blessing to me, which I think in turn blesses our church too.
Awesome. For me, John and Jim, you guys are a voice in my life that I have tailored, it's part of my goals to have the Leading from Alignment a part of my week, and I look forward to it Tuesdays. And it's a shot in the arm. And like Mike Montgomery was saying, I've sent these podcasts to other friends and encouraged, and then of course use them with our staff at times as well. And so I'm just really grateful, and to hear Jim share in his creative illustrations every week. It makes me better. And John, you've got a command on what you're doing, and have a pulse on pastors, and it's a blessing. And so thank you.
Yeah, I echo what both have said so far. And the biggest thing that we do, our staff, we meet on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock. We go to about 2 o'clock. And one of the first things we do after we pray together, and one of our staff has a devotional rotation schedule, we always listen to a leadership podcast. And, for several years, we were listening to Craig Rochelle. I like his podcast. There's some other podcasts we were listening to. And then when I heard that you both were launching a podcast, we started locking in on that. And I'm not just saying this to make you feel good, even though I pray it does. I hope it does make you feel good. We listen to you guys every week now. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, we love your content. It's phenomenal. The thing that our staff gets a kick out of, and I told you this, John, is I love how you two balance each other out. Jim is the guy who has all these quips and quotes that are just incredible. And I'm trying to write them down. I don't know how many times, Jim, we've had to stop the podcast, write it down what you said, because it was so awesome. You come up with these things and it's like, whoa. And then, sometimes you'll go like on a rabbit trail that's awesome, and John kind of steers you back in.
Yes.
So we always get a kick out of that, how you and I mean this, you balance each other out. Your giftings are awesome together. And again, I'm not just saying that to say that. You've been a blessing to me, and I mean that and to my staff, and just just how you care. And I can really tell through your podcast and just the different topics that you discuss. you're talking about relevant things that people, not only churches, but businesses and corporations are going through. And boy, you guys knock it out of the park every week, and we look forward to each week's content. Just want to say thank you.
That's encouraging. That's very kind.
Yeah, thank you guys for those kind words. And I want to give Mike Hauser just a little shout out here. We started doing show notes this year, and Mike, you were the genius behind that. You just suggested, hey, why don't you do some show notes to help us with our note taking? And so thank you for that suggestion. It's really been we get so many clicks on the show notes now, because we are able to track that. And so thank you for caring about what we're doing so much that you'd even offer us some advice. We really appreciate that.
Right on. So here's the last thing we're going to do today. I mean, we got time, but we're going to get into our time machine. We're going to go back in time. We're going to meet ourselves just as our public ministry is starting. So just post training, post Bible school, and we're going to have a quick conversation with our younger selves. And we're going to tell us something we're going to need to know. We wish we would have known then. What would you tell the younger you, the just starting out in ministry you? You got out of the time machine. You've got like 1 or 2 sentences before you got to get back in your time machine and come back. And you want to get their full attention. What would you say to you all those years ago?
My first thought when I saw that idea was, you're not that important. And I know I mentioned earlier about confidence, but there is a sense that the older I get, the understanding that, the Lord uses us in a season, and that there's, for me personally, to keep my ego at bay, if I could turn back time, and if I had the wisdom to listen, which is tough, I think I would probably be talking about Bitcoin or my ego. Just kidding about Bitcoin.
It's funny.
Now, Mike Hauser, I know you would have chosen a different football team, but anything else you would have changed in your life?
I've always had the Buckeyes as my number one team because I'm originally from there. But no, I would say coming out of Bible college, there are some things that Bible college, the classroom setting, cannot teach you.
Yes.
Ministry 101 has to be just something that you learn and that you go through. And I would just say the biggest thing for me is, I had an idea of what pastoring would be like, as my dad is a retired pastor. My grandfather went home to be with the Lord, but he was a pastor and evangelist for years. So raised in church, so I was called at an early age. But coming out of Bible college, you kind of have a thing of how you think it's going to go. I have 15 years of youth ministry in 3 different states, and now I've been here 15. And the biggest thing for me, even though it sounds cliche, is to realize ministry is fluid. Ministry is it is definitely a marathon, and it's not it is not for the faint of heart. This might not sound like a very good way to talk to somebody that's contemplating the ministry, but this is what I would suggest to them. And I mean this, maybe it's a wrong way to look at it, but I would tell them, try to do everything else. And if you come back to that's what you want to do, then you're called to do it, because it's amazing the dropouts that are happening. And I don't say that, to belittle, but men and women are getting out of ministry, and you have to know, sometimes during COVID, I had to just know that I was called.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw people, getting upset with me and our staff because they thought we were too COVID, whatever. And then people that thought we weren't too COVID. And we lost people, and my shepherd's heart, it hurt me. I mean, there I literally would weep. I would be like, what can I do differently? Because if I do this, I'm going to offend them. If I do this, I'm going to offend them. And I just realized that God has called me to preach the word and love people, and to realize it is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and I'm just determined to stay at it. It's been tough, but I know sometimes you just got to know that you're called to do what you're doing. And the thing about it is, it's like these other 2 guys that I've been friends with Ben for quite a while, and glad to meet Mike today. We're all in it together.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you see what's going on, you think it's just happening in your own context, but what's happening all over the nation doesn't mean really like, oh, praise God, it's happening everywhere else, not just me. But it's of camaraderie that we as pastors, we're in it together for the long haul.
Yeah. So good.
What about you, Mike?
As I thought about that, I there's a lot of things I'd like to tell myself, but I think the main thing is I'd want to be clear with me that you are not defined or valued because of what you do.
Hmm.
There is not, you don't have to be better than everybody else in town to be a part of the work that God's called you to do. And it doesn't make the work you're doing less valuable to the Big C church and the cause of Christ. Validation is not through the buildings we build or the people we have or the amount of money in the bank. But the validation comes through the one that called us. And we're only going to find him in a daily walk in his word. And I think that's the thing that I could have, I probably saved myself a lot of sleepless nights if I had found my validation in Christ sooner.
Yeah. And John, if I could answer that as well, because this one I think is near and dear to my heart as we're working with a lot of younger ministers now, as I would say, I just look myself right in the eye and say, be every man's servant, but only have one master. And the balance of that, just serve everybody you can, prefer everyone above yourself. That's wonderful. But at the end of the day, if everybody thinks you're an idiot and Jesus says you did good, kid, then I did good. And everybody says you did good, kid, and Jesus says you're an idiot, I'm an idiot. And so to keep that in focus, that I have one master, and he's strongly affirming Michigan football, and I appreciate that over Ohio State. So,
praise him.
I was thinking about this question too, and I would tell the newly graduated version of myself that you're a three-part being. You have a spirit, that part of you that connects to God, and you have a body that you need to take care of, and you have a soul, your emotions and your thinking and your will. And all three of those are important.
Yeah.
And if you want to be in this thing for the long haul, you have to tend to all three areas. As a new guy out of college, I tended to the spiritual part of my life very well. And I didn't tend to the emotional part of my life, the mental and emotional part of my life very well. And I paid a huge price in my mid-30s going through suicidal depression. And so, my heart would be that no young leader would ever have to go through what I went through. And so that's what I would tell myself as well.
John, if I could just say one more thing about that.
Yeah.
Well, I was hearing the go around answering that question. The thing that kind of prompted in me was that I would tell myself it's worth it and to hang on. But the idea that it's worth it and all the hard work, all the prayer, all the sacrifice, it's worth it.
So good.
Want to say one quick thing as well, that being very transparent here, John knows about this, but been here 15 years, and about 7 or 8 years into being here, I inherited a church, not to talk about it a lot, but I inherited a church that had gone through an embezzlement, had about $2 million in indebtedness. When I got here, had under 100 people, but I knew God had called me here. And things began to move about year 3. But I found myself at about year 6 and 7, where I was coming in, 8 or 9 in the morning, but I was staying through till 9 at night. And that was Monday, Friday. And it's just, I burned out. I hit year 7. And I can literally say that people didn't know it. Even my closest staff, said, we thought you acted a little different, but we just thought maybe you're going through a little bit of a hard time. But at year 7, I hit a 4-year period of depression. Lasted 4 years, and it was even went to the point of clinical, where I go to my spirit-filled doctor and go to him and talk to him, and I just told him I don't know what's wrong with me, because I had never faced depression in my life. And of course, you have some blues or whatever, but my wife didn't understand it because it was totally odd to see it from me, and my kids surely didn't understand it. But I went to my spirit-filled doctor, and he said, Mike, this is what's going on. He said, yeah, I bet you're not sleeping. I said, I'm not. I'm staring at the ceiling all night long. And so he put me on a journey to get back. And the reason why I say all that is your podcast, even though it talks about so many different issues, one thing that I love it from both of you is you deal with the emotional part of a pastor or leader's life. And I love that. We are a 3-part being. And if one's not healthy, the others aren't going to be healthy. And I had to get to a point where I admitted in myself, Mike, you're trying way too hard. And in some ways I didn't even realize it, but somebody came to me and they said, you're dealing with pride. And I went, what are you talking about? He said, you think it has everything to do with you. It doesn't. It's everything to do with God. And so when I made that exchange and said, God, you want to see Holland First succeed far more than I do, and I surely want to see it succeed, that right there did a paradigm shift in my life. But your podcast really ministered to the psychological part too, keeping your soul healthy. And I just want to tell you personally, that's how I met you, John. We were at district council. We went out to lunch, you and your wife, my wife, and myself, and heard your journey. And I knew it was a God thing right there that, you were put into my life, because I don't know how many times hearing you talk about how you journeyed through that and came out on the other side better and stronger. That's happened in my life. And I still have to, and I don't know if you would echo this, but I know in my own life, I still have to be careful.
Oh, yeah.
I know those areas are that could take me back down again, but it's your training and your knowledge and not only sympathy, but empathy, because you've gone through. Don't ever discount when you talk about that on your podcast, the difference that is making in people's lives, because it's making a difference in my life.
Thanks so much for that, Mike. And I would just agree with what you said about the maintenance of it. I have to work very hard to stay well. I haven't, it's not like this one and done thing. I got better. And I never have had to think about it again. Nope. I am on lifelong maintenance. So I want to echo what you said there. And I hope those of you who are watching today or listening who might be struggling with depression, or maybe you've come through that experience and you're doing better, to be vigilant, to keep doing the things that you're supposed to do to stay well. So Mike, thanks for pushing up on that. I really appreciate it.
Great.
Well, John, why don't you land the plane today? This is our 100th episode. And we've dealt with a variety of issues. We've had some great guests. We've enjoyed a conversation. Tell us, here's a question I didn't prepare you for, and you're not prepared for, but I know you're going to have the answer to. You ready for this one?
I hope so.
Okay. 100 episodes from now, we have another conversation. We listen to what you're about to say. Right here, when I say, what do you see for the next 100 episodes?
Wow. That is... totally caught me off guard. I didn't know you were going to ask me that.
Yeah.
Jim, I hope that in the next 100 episodes that we can provide hope and content and practical. I'm nothing if I'm not practical. Practical behaviors that will help leaders become the best version of themselves possible. On all levels, right? I want those who listen and watch, I want them to be well. I want them to be healthy. I want them to have great marriages. I want their kids to love Jesus and love the church. I want them to feel confident in their calling, that when they listen to a podcast, that it helps them not only feel more confident about their calling, but actually even feel more competent in their calling as well. I want to see in the next 100 episodes, I would love to see the level of all of those things just inch up more and more. That's my heart. That's my calling. We're called to help leaders lead better and lead longer. One of you said it's a marathon. I think, I can't remember which one of you said that, but you said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. We want them to lead longer, but we also want them to have more fun along the way. And I think that it's very easy for us to lose the fun part of what we do, right? Because of the stuff we've got to deal with on a daily basis. But I truly believe that it's possible to lead better, to lead longer, and to enjoy it more. So if I could say a wish, that would be my wish for the
All
next 100 podcasts, Jim.
And the reason I threw that on you at the last minute is our brains can prepare a carefully crafted set of words to answer something, but our hearts just blurt out what's there.
Yeah.
And I loved it when they said, what's the next 100 episodes? You said people, God, leaders, people, marriage. That's who you are. And I hope that everybody, I know right here, you can see us, we're all nodding our heads because that's who you are. That's your ministry to the world. That's what God's given you to steward. And God bless you, my friend, for all that you've done. This is your dream. This is your effort. Like I say, my job is to show up, do rabbit trails and put a giggle in every once in a while, but it's your heart. It's your wisdom that leads this. And so congratulations, John, on 100 episodes. Here's to the next 100 episodes. And we have so much to talk about in just the next 2 I know that are coming up that's going to help people lead longer and better and have more fun doing it. So until that next episode, we want to say God bless all of our listeners and watchers. It's for you that we do this. I want to thank all of our guests that are with us today. You guys did a great job. I think we should do once a month, maybe a coffee. We should all get coffee and just talk with no agenda. I don't know if I have to record it. It's just for me. But if it's good, let's air it. But the coffee clutch, the coffee clutch culture people or something. I don't know. So
There you go.
yeah. But God bless you, and we hope that you'll join us again on the